Well, welcome back. We didn't get to meet on Monday. So you have a whole week to play around with what you were playing around with. Talk to me, man. What's going on? How have things progressed since we last talked? Let's go there.
Right. I mean, as far as the task I was working on, I think I've come to a completion. So was able to get what I needed for that task. The task I'm talking about was in particular was the uh, folder and share permissioning to include a no access group. I did mention that the volume was fairly large. It took including the weekend, so end to end, I'd say roughly about close to 7 to 8 days to complete. It looks like it's doing all the tasks. Here there, I had to tweak the script a bit, but leveraging Claude really kind of facilitated that progress. So yeah, that's good. Got what I
So,
need. Just kind of moving on to other things.
so let me clarify there. You said I got Claude to facilitate that progress, meaning what specifically? I want to make sure we were in alignment with what you're talking about.
So from the beginning, what we were talking about foundationally, just kind of like asking it, what well, kind of like querying what I'm trying to accomplish, and then layering on top of that
Okay.
things that kind of came up that went kind of like that forked into different avenues.
Right.
So that helped me kind of come to a closer conclusion
Gotcha.
to my progress.
Gotcha. Now, did you do this all within that one project? Did you wind up creating different projects for offshoots of what you're doing, or is this still on that one project?
No, no, it was still on that project.
Okay.
Every time that I would I came across what I thought was the ending, right?
Yeah.
I'm initiating the script of what we had kind of been discussing.
Right.
There was always something else, like, oh, well, this needed to be included, like, long path file names, or adding, optimizing the script so that it continues. Or this came up as well, is that initially when I was running it on
Hmm.
execution day, it was doing count. It was counting every file, right?
Yeah.
And it took, like, I was like, what's going on? Then I would query Claude and said, well, this is what it's doing. Yeah, why don't we just kind of remove that, and then we'll just kick it off and get it started, which is what it did. And then it just completed. It was kind of doing that, and yeah, I mean, that's here we are.
Did you find yourself going into those custom instruction sets and tweaking that along the way? Did you have an opportunity to look at that at all, or you stuck with the chat?
I I I didn't. As a
Okay,
matter of fact,
that's fine.
what I was doing, and I need to circle back to that. I need to do that. That's what I plan on doing this weekend, because I was kind of getting pulled into other projects. Like,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that F5, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I started kind of like throwing a lot of the project notes that I was getting from the project team into that. I need to kind of circle back into that, because now it's just like project of the project. So you're getting pulled in all sorts of directions.
Right.
So that's a folder that I created. So I'm going to go back to that once I complete this task, and then we'll move on from there.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything that you worked better than expected?
Work further than yeah, I mean, okay, you know what? There was another matter that I was dealing with
Mhm.
uh, throughout the weekend. So during the weekend, while I was working on this task, right, there was another issue that came up where one of my colleagues, reached out to me, and he said, "Oh, I can't get into VMware for some reason, some odd reason." He was getting a no healthy streams error, right? Typically, when you see something like that, you go into, it's usually like there's a there's a share that's probably overused or at 98%, and that that's easy, you can clear up.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. What I did was instead of opening up a support case, which would have probably taken longer, right. I tasked Claude. I said, acting as a VMware engineer expert, right?
Yep.
Based on this particular error that we're seeing, what are your conclusions? What should I be looking for to to address this particular thing? One thing was it mentioned was what I thought it was going to was look at the storage, right? We did address that, but it just kept coming up, right? So now this kind of like opened up a new can of worms, because now I'm taking the log or the error logs that I'm getting from my PuTTY session, and I'm dumping it into Claude to kind of address what's going on.
Yep.
This goes down into a rabbit hole, because what I'm thinking is that as much as Claude helps, I also don't want to completely lean on it too much. In the sense that, well, from a skill set point of view, right? Because you got to keep yourself sharp. You're gonna have to be able to do these things on your own. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, do you? And think about it. Think about it. Do you?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, I mean, you'll go into, you do a Google search. You'll go into kind of like some blogs to try to figure out what the heck. You try to figure out, well, what caused this. Now, that does take some time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And the goal here is to address the situation, especially based on criticality, right?
Right.
But because this wasn't like that was really like something that was like, oh well, I need it fixed right now type of deal.
Yeah.
That allowed me some time to kind of like query Claude and try to go down this path.
Yeah. I'm gonna challenge you there, right? Because I had the same mindset initially around keeping the skills fresh and look, we've been doing this 30 plus years. Yeah. I'm not disputing that fact, right? That skills need to be fresh, but this is a new skill that you're building into your tool belt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And one thing I want to push back on is I had a similar conversation probably about 20 years ago at this point. The new guy came out to my team, junior guy, millennial, right? I was newly appointed manager of the team, and we were talking about disaster recovery.
Yeah.
And we had to, at that time, we did our disaster recovery testing in Iron Mountain, right? So completely isolated network. Most people, I'm hoping most people around our age were accustomed to doing that. And I told the new guys, like, hey, this is going to be your task, right? You're going to do the semantic backup recovery. You're going to restore that for us. So that way, when teams are ready to do the restoration, we're ready to do, pull from tape, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, here's the SOP, run through it, right? See where there are any problems, right? And any gaps in lack of understanding, or maybe we just assume things, and rewrite the SOP to address any gaps. Right. I was like, no problem. So he goes off into the ether, and 2 weeks later I come back. I'm like, all right, what's going on? He's like, well, I'm stuck, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, cool. Let's talk about it. He's like, well, I'm on the phone. I was like, who are you on the phone with? He's like, I'm on the phone with the vendor. I was like, why are you on the phone with the vendor? And he's like, because I'm going through the problem that I'm facing right now. I was like, is it in the SOP in terms of troubleshooting? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, so what's going on? And I was like, well, this is not working. This is not working. I was like, okay, I get that, but you should have escalated at least to me or somebody else on the team. And he's like, why? I have the vendor on the call. I was like, because at the time of a disaster, you're not going to have the vendor on the call.
Right.
You're gonna be in the room, blah, blah, blah. He's like, and he just looks at me. He's like, why? Like, and at that point in time, I'm kind of like, yeah, why won't he have the vendor on the call?
Yeah.
Right. Like, why wouldn't he have to, like, why wouldn't he leverage that? And that's why I'm pushing back on you. It's like, I don't know what's my mobile device, right? Like, my phone has Claude on it, right? If I'm stuck anywhere, I could just pull up Claude and answer a question for me. Right. So I'm not saying that you're not keeping your skills fresh. Right, I'm not debating that. You're absolutely right. You need to keep your skills fresh, but it's improving and sharpening your skills on how to approach a problem, leveraging the tools that you have available to you, right? Prior to Google, right, we had our tribal knowledge, we had our SOPs, we had our books. Remember the stack of books that we used to keep next to our desk and things like that?
Yeah.
right? Bulletin boards, right, and things like that for those of us that remember that. And then Google came around. It was like, oh my God, these kids can just search, whatever they want and get an answer to whatever they want. This is similar.
Yeah.
It's just another tool that you need to sharpen your skills on how, because a kid will come in off the street and do something very quickly, and it'll make you look like the old timer, right? The guy from the 1900s.
100%.
Right. So I'm not saying you're not losing your focus. You're not losing your skill set. You're actually improving them. Right. Where I position everyone around our age to leverage this, because we have the 30 plus years of knowledge around everything that can and will go wrong, compared to somebody coming off the street. It's like, I'm just going to use AI to do this for me. But they're not going to know, they're not going to have the experience of, well, if I deploy this way, it's going to have downstream impact to something else. They're not going to know that. They're just going to say, well, AI told me to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's where I see, like, your thought process is great, because that's exactly how I would have said it. It's like, well, I'm kind of losing a skill set, blah, blah. But then I took a step back. I'm like, not really. Because my skill set is my ability to look at a problem, right, and understand what questions I need to ask to get to the resolution of that problem.
Right.
Right. And it's like that whole, I think there's like a bunch of articles out there or TikToks around, you guys, new kid coming in, a plumber, right? Plumber charges you $25 an hour to fix a toilet. It takes him 4 hours to do it. Veteran comes in, he charges you $150 an hour and fixes it in 15 minutes. Right. You're paying for the experience.
Right.
You're paying for that knowledge that he knows what to do. Right. And he has the tools to be able to do it. And this is a tool set that you are adding to your tool belt. And we're only scratching the surface right now. You're using chat.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I asked you, I was like, what do you mean Claude helped you to do this?
Right.
In my world, we actually have Claude executing things for us. Right. So from simple Jira updates, publishing wikis within Confluence, to running code.
Yeah.
Right? From Terraform and things like that. So again, the way we all need to look at this is, that pod mentality from House of Lies, right? These are our consultants. We're giving them direction on what to do, and they go off and do it. Now, where we come in with our experiences, we have to manage, like, you're managing a team, right? You're managing a team to be able to execute and do things you're doing. You're not, this is a slippery slope, because as you get higher in management, right, you do become less technical, because you have to focus on politics. But here you're managing a team of technical agents, so you're still fine tuning your technical skills, because you're going to catch the agent or the process, right? Let's not use the word agent. Let's just use a process or automation to execute on something, but it's not going to tell you whether it understands it or not, right? It's just like, okay, you told me to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're still building your skill sets in terms of being able to properly and efficiently tell something to do something, a technical thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So even Google, remember the whole Google, right? When Google first came out, oh, these kids are, they're getting answers quickly, blah, 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 but they don't understand the ramifications or downstream impacts, or if you do it this way, right? And we've all come across that. I've done it myself, right? And we're like, oh, I did something. Oh shit, I didn't realize what it did. So I'm just saying, don't look at it as losing something. You're gaining another skill set. This is the next evolution of the IT person, the sysadmin, the sysengineer, the CCIE, whatever, right? This is going to be something in their tool belt, especially for those of us that have the experience. Now, it's going to be more challenging for us, because we come at a higher cost than somebody coming off the street, and somebody's, management's going to say, well, I'm going to hire the kid off the street, but that kid's going to have a longer ramp up time, because he doesn't understand the whole downstream. But that's another conversation. So getting back to you.
Yeah.
All right. Getting back to you. Thanks for letting me stand on my soapbox there for a second. Is there anything you've got frustrated with or stuck? You're like, damn, I feel like I'm missing something, or.
Yeah, I think I think that about that a lot. It's more about how I could have phrased my questions more efficiently to get the answer I'm looking for, without having to constantly be bop. You know, understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think it's working on that,
Mm-hmm.
kind like, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? And can I get it, kind of, can I query it or open up a session and try to give as much detail or context? Uh, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be able to do everything, but I'm going to do the best of my ability so that I can get at least get started quicker. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's really for me. That's what I need to get to. I need to get to that point where I'm just kind of, all right, I'm formulating these questions or these queries in a way that I can get the answer I'm looking for at a more efficient, response time.
And I think a lot of that's going to come from
Oh,
not only practice, but building your instruction set
yeah,
with the information about your environment, because you're using your corporate account.
yeah,
You can upload your entire architecture design into Claude. So again, to your point, you don't have to keep explaining it over and over and over again. It's going to remember, right? It's building the memory.
yeah.
It's going to remember. And let's get into that too, because I want to show you some projects and some different projects and the different memory that's built over time for me. But not only, which screen am I working on here? This one. Not only are you going to get better at that, you're going to understand. Here it is. You're going to see how it remembers. You're seeing my Claude thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, work things. All right. You're going to see how over time memory is going to just continue increasing. So here's my work things, right? A place for ideation planning for my current organization, right? Here's my project set that I created, agenda builder, weekly one-on-ones, strategic leadership stuff, dashboards to build, delegation rituals, all in all, playbooks and things like that I do. So over the course of time, it builds this memory, right? So, hey, Chuck's a VP, Cloud Core Engineering. Leadership mission is transition my team from provisioning to intelligent platform engineering. Here's the folks that report into me or I report into. Here's my technical initiatives, right? My zero touch, my unified. It builds this over time as I'm continuing to work, right? On the horizon, NTLM deprecation, some contract stuff. So it's building it over the course of time, and each one of these are different. So here's my podcast ideas, right? You see, this Chuck hosts the IT podcast, ITXP podcast, and continues going on and on and on. Sometimes I have instruction sets into this. Sometimes I don't. Depends on what it is. Corporate Hardcore has a bunch of files to reference, right? Here's corporate Chuck, here's the HR person, here's the CEO. And again, the memory builds as you continue to use it. And you'll see that as you continue to work through each of these projects, right? Your memory is going to build. And sometimes you're going to have to tweak your memory, but we won't even get into that right now. But it'll continue building, building, and building. And what I always tell you is maybe every 3 months as you go through this, relook at your instruction sets, because things may change. Your environment may change, right? You want to make sure that you have these instruction sets aligned with your environment. I know when I had my corporate hardcore, which was my first really big project that I started working with in Claude, I had a one-layer content system, right? It was everything all into one chat, and I was doing too much, right? So I said, let me break it out. I have video content going on here. I do articles now as part of my blog. Here's video production. And then I have different hook formats and production checklists and things like that. So that over time was built as I continued to iterate. And corporate hardcore is a really good testament to how I've iterated over the course of time. And actually, when I took a look at this, I've been with Claude for 2 years. I didn't realize it. I've been with Claude for 2 years. So all this stuff is just over a course of 2 years learning about this. Yeah. And one thing I want to clarify, last week, I didn't catch myself because I probably was thinking about something about another. I think was thinking about another LLM, Okara. But remember I told you in the main chat here, if you're outside of a project, you can actually reference projects.
Yeah.
You can't in Claude. You can't in Claude. The projects are isolated within each. The main chat cannot go into each individual projects. I was thinking about something completely different. So when I said about your thing about, you can go to the main chat and then ask it for your self-assessment.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You got to go into each individual project.
Each individual project is siloed.
Is siloed. Yeah. Each individual project is siloed.
And so that was a question I was just about to ask you, because it was like, okay, well, are you kind of like building your instruction set? It's like it can go into each project, but now that I understand that each project is siloed amongst itself, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
each of those project, but it does take the main instruction set for Claude. So remember I told you there's the main instruction set for Claude. It'll use this, load that up first, and then in addition, it'll do the instruction set within the project.
got it.
All right. So that way you don't have to keep saying, oh, write it this way, write it this way, write it this way. Now, you may want it to write differently. Like for corporate hardcore, I have a write it different than I do for my work things.
Sure.
Right. Because corporate hardcore is more satirical in nature and things like that. Even though I'm satirical at work, I can't be an asshole all the time. Right. So you may want to do different things within your instruction sets for the projects based on what you're working on. Right. Especially when you get into the whole aspect of using emails and things like that, writing emails, leveraging Claude and things like that, or doing resumes in Claude, things like that. Like I had consulting jobs and do things like that. My consulting, my tech ideas, right? Purpose. And I have a bunch of different things here. But yeah, projects is something that definitely you should continue focusing in on, honing your skill sets on projects. And the instruction sets are really going to help you move along further than just a chat, right? And I just got to get my I have 3 monitors and
So let me ask you
yeah.
this, because you know that I do a multitude of things, right?
Yeah.
So just thinking on that, should I silo my abilities? Like for example, I do F5, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
silo for F5, a silo for VMware, a silo for storage, a silo for server. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, I was like, should that would be the direction I go, or is it like should I encompass everything into like one whole thing?
I would look at it from your perspective. I would look at it in terms of different roles within the company the many hats that you wear within the company, not from a technology perspective, because F5, you don't have any virtual. Do you have virtual F5s at this point? I can't forget.
We are going to be deploying virtual F5s.
Right. So that's going to be a dependency on VMware, right? So if you silo off VMware, it's not going to know about your, right. So
Yeah.
the way I would approach it is siloing off based on your job function.
Okay.
Right. So if you're an architect and you just want to focus on architecting and designing, create a project for that. You're still going to provide it the instruction sets around your systems, designs, and things like that. But that project is going to focus solely on architecture. It's going to be an SME in architecture. It's going to be expert. It's going to help you architect and design certain things. It's not going to do troubleshooting. Right. It's not going to do it. Then your next one would be your engineering project. Right. That's where everything else is going to go right now. And maybe your third one is going to be, the corporate politics project, right? Like this, that's where you do your emails and things like that. And, right. Yeah, you think about job function, but play around with it, right?
Yeah.
Play around with it. Like you see here, right? I have a work things, my podcast idea, corporate hardcore. So corporate hardcore was actually part of podcast ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to split it out because it just grew into its own thing. Right. And then I have my travel business and then tech ideas and right things like that. So again, this was me playing around with projects. Most of them I used work things, corporate hardcore are the 2 that I used the most. My travel business that I started is relatively new. And in here you'll see I populated everything from all the trainings that I did from a travel perspective. They're all in here. So now I can ask it, what royal ship is the largest, right? Just say something stupid like that, right? Just to be quick. It's searching the web, right? But it also has that information in the instruction set that can pull up that information because I have it in there as well, right? But this was a simple thing. But if I wanted to dig deeper and like somebody asked me a question about something on Royal Caribbean, it's already in the instruction set when here, right? And a lot of these PDF files that are in here that it'll just pick it up. And maybe I didn't put the Royal Caribbean stuff in here. I don't remember, but a lot of this stuff is in here. And you can see I'm only using 12% of the project capacity, right?
Yeah.
So think about what you can feed into Claude in the project sense, right? So it understands going forward what it needs to do.
Oh
Right.
yeah, for particularly for the F5, I've already, a lot of the detail of what we're trying to accomplish,
Right.
what new equipment's coming in, and what we're trying to. So, what we're going to. What
Yep.
I'm going to do next is kind of add the existing architecture of what we're coming from,
Right.
so that it has an idea as to what we're trying to accomplish.
And that's key. That is a strategic move for you, right? Because now you're saying, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. Right. So you're telling Claude, okay, this is where I want to go. Help me.
Yeah. And I could also see, an offshoot of just the new deployment will be, kind of troubleshooting, right?
Right.
The
Right.
existing
Right.
environment, what it's looking at, what's working, maybe some logs of what's kind of like currently happening with particularly pools or what have you.
Right.
And that way it can be an idea as to what I can tweak to make it more efficient.
Right. Any other questions around what we've talked about so far?
No, I've got a lot to work on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to spend more time with it this week, but with a bunch of the other tasks, physically have to go to this new office. It's taking up a lot of my time.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to do is I wanted to show you kind of the breadth of how deep you can go. And you've already started experiencing it, so I'm glad you did that. But I want to show you an example that I used about a month ago to share this one. Share this again. So we had a problem where we had in our cloud environment, we had some AMIs that were deployed, images, right, that were deployed that weren't our standard images. And they were like, why, how, blah, 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 blah. Right. So I came in here and said, here's my question. Right. It's sitting in my work things project. And I just started asking questions. Right. And it came out with certain things. But what I want to show you here is how we've actually iterated through this troubleshooting process. So I say, hey, we have a lot of organizational SCPs. Is there a command that I can cycle through each one? Here you go. Here's a one-liner. And we continue iterating. I get an error. Right. We can iterate, I copy and pasted the error and things like that, to the point where I started asking people questions, right? And I said, oh, here's one of our senior cloud engineers, because this was done before I joined the team, so I wasn't sure. Not a lot of that was documented from the previous engineers, which I've addressed since joining the team, right? So he just said, boom, here's a question, and I didn't understand what he meant because sometimes these engineers they kind of don't know how to explain things properly. So I said, hey, what does this mean? Right? What does this mean? So it says, oh, and it gives me an example, right? So a lot of this, right, as you go through it, just running through some of the things that we were dealing with, right? Just running through how I iterated through the process, right? It gave me some things to run. It's a conversation, right? And one thing that I see, and I'm glad you experienced this on your own. One thing I see is people start a chat, they get their answer, and then they start a new chat, right? Probably for the same thing. And then you're asking the same question over and over again. And what I pointed out to you in the first episode was, this is why I have all of these chats in here, because I can always go back and say, hey, remember that problem we were working on? Like, Claude doesn't have a concept of time, right? It doesn't. It still thinks it's like a month ago at this point. If I go back and say, what's today's date? It'll tell you what it was a month ago. But you can always go back and say, okay, I'm having this problem still. Here's blah, blah, blah. So what I'm showing here is that iteration of how it continues to be beneficial to stay within this conversation, right? Because the memory for this conversation is still here, right? And it will continue iterating until you get to a point where I think, and see how long this is, right? It's just continuing going back and forth, continue asking questions, going back. I uploaded screenshots of certain errors. It actually gave me email responses and how I wanted to approach this. So this is, right? And then at the end is like, what this confirms about your investigation, right? And it gave me 3 things, right? And this was all based on what you went through just this past week of just continuing the conversation with Claude, continuing the conversation in the same chat. So that way you don't lose that momentum, Don't delete conversations
Yeah,
unless you absolutely don't need them. Just keep going.
you said something that really hit home is the fact that as engineers, sometimes you functionally you understand how it works, right?
Yep.
But explaining it,
Yes.
right? It's like, okay, now I have to explain it because as engineers, we for the most part, we live a very solitude kind of lifestyle.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're trying to like, all right, let me just get to this quick and move on to the next thing. I don't need to have a whole conversation.
Right.
But
Right.
this exactly, you hit it right on the head, and it's understanding and that's what will help, kind of like, especially get the kind of tease out the information you're looking for, is to understand how to have that conversation and how to phrase these questions, so that you can get the answer you're looking for.
Right. And one thing to your point, not only do we have a problem explaining things to other engineers at times, we also have a problem explaining it to non-technical folks.
Well, yeah, that's the worst part.
Right. Right.
Because
So
you're like,
yeah.
Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
Right. So what we do is, right. I think I have it here somewhere. If there, oh, so all right. See, now the difference is Claude already knows who Tony is. He's my boss's boss, right? He knows he's not very technical, right? So it already knows how to write it. Right. I already started some of the conversation here, and it just says, following up for my note on Friday, blah, blah, blah. So you can actually tell it how to write it in a language that's more palatable for non-technical folks, right? In the same chat, right? Because it's going to have that whole context of what you've been working on to be able to provide that response that you're going to need to leadership that's not very technical. And that's going to be key. So you saw I have a separate chat just for emails, right? But you could still have that same chat, same process or same workflow in an existing chat to provide responses to senior leadership, risk folks, cybersecurity, whomever, right? The CEO, because now it has the entire context of what you've been working on, and be able to formulate a response to those folks that are less technical.
Yeah.
And then even to maybe cyber folks that you don't have that expertise in, but you can ask Claude to explain it in a way that they'll understand, right? So that way it saves you time. So maintaining that conversation in the same chat is going to benefit you across a number of different facets of your work life. That's going to be beneficial, especially for troubleshooting issue, right? Or especially for like design sessions that you're working on. Staying within that chat and having that multi-layer chat is going to be beneficial overall in the long run.
Yeah.
And you're not going to lose it, right? And it's going to continue updating your memory.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how the initial conversation or query could germinate into a whole specific project or conversation, and based on the instruction set, you kind of like configure around it. But yeah, that makes total sense.
And I can even switch models, right, within the same chat. You couldn't do this before. And when I switched to Opus 7 or Opus in the old Claude, it would start a new chat and then I lose everything. But now I go back here and I can switch to Opus. I can go back to Haiku if I wanted to, or I go back to Sonnet, which is what my preferred method is, like my preferred model, I should say. But right now with the new version of Claude, at least the Claude Web, and even in Claude Code, when we get there, or Claude Desktop, you can switch models within the same chat without losing any of that context. So you're working on a complex problem. Sonnet's just not doing it for you, right? Like you feel like you're going in a constant loop, which sometimes you'll get there. Sometimes you'll get to a point where Sonnet's just like you're not getting what I'm asking. Switch to Opus, and you get a completely different response because it's working harder now at that point.
No, that's definitely something I remember.
And sometimes you'll want to have a new chat. So going back to, if I go back to corporate hardcore, let me move this thing out here. I think the original corporate hardcore started in this growth strategy. I think this was the original one. Yeah, this is the original one where I started here. Yeah. I started here with like all the videos and things like that. And it got to be too much. So I split it off, right? That's why I have corporate hardcore. Oh, that's my Mandarin one. Corporate hardcore main, right? I have video production now because as you continue to grow and as you continue to use the projects more efficiently, you'll find that sometimes things get a little bit too cluttered.
Yeah.
And then that clutter, while it's good for the context, at least for me, didn't work well in terms of the evolution of this specific brand. Work the same thing, right? Because work we context switch all the time that I can't just throw everything in one chat. I'll have the AMI chat. I'll have the vulnerabilities chat. I'll have I'm deploying this new on-call scheduler for engineering chat, right? Oh, I have my Jira my team Jira status reports chat where I just say pull the Jira status for my team and it pulls it into a nice report for me, right? So for you, you may find that beneficial as well. That's why I was telling you focus more on job function as opposed to technology, because the technologies are intertwined together, right? There's going to be dependency on VMware for F5 in the future. There's always a dependency on storage. So you want to keep the technologies together, but maybe the job function a little bit differently.
What about do you? I mean, obviously we're all using Teams, right?
Yes.
And if Teams is recorded or somehow, are you dumping any of those conversations into just as just as a means to kind of like get keep everyone honest about the conversations you've had, and also kind of give you the direction of what you're trying to accomplish in that particular meeting or whatever.
So yes, I do. I dump transcripts into Claude Code all the time. I don't because again, this is my personal Claude, so I can't upload anything corporate into here. But I dump it into Claude Code because we have Claude Code now. I have it analyze a transcript for me. It actually does a lot better job than Teams Copilot does in terms of summarizing.
Sure.
And then I have it build out specific tasks based off of that. Now, look, Teams could do it. It does a good job, but it's I'll say it's very business process oriented as opposed to technically capable of doing things.
Right.
If that makes sense. Or and maybe it's also my bias, right? As well, it could be my bias as well, in where I find Claude just works a lot better in terms of taking the transcription and really providing insights into what happened in that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I do that all the time, especially with my one-on-ones. I tell my team all the time now is I'm recording every single one-on-one. Firstly, because now I'm focused on you.
Right.
I don't have to worry about taking notes like I used to, right? I take notes. It's like, okay, let's go back to that. And no, now with Teams recording it, I let Teams do the transcription, but then I take the transcription into my, I have a chat for each one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I take it in there and then I say, hey, write the meeting minutes or follow-up email for this one-on-one into my style, the way I like to respond to my team. Mm-hmm. Right, because I've trained Claude on how to do that. Right, your focus is going to be like so. I have 3 AVPs reporting to me: a senior guy, a mid guy, and a junior girl. Right. So for the junior, her focus is going to be just learning. Right. So the message I send to her is tailored around that. Whereas my senior most architect guy, I'm trying to get him to back away from being hands-on and allowing the other 2 guys to be more hands-on and really be an architect. Yeah. Right. So I tailor that message to him. So anytime I reinforce that message, like, hey, pull back, let these folks handle it, be there as kind of that guide. That message is consistent. Right. And you could do the same thing for everything for your needs. If you're having a project based meeting, throw it into the chat for that project, the Claude project for the project that you're working on, right? So that way now it has a context around what throw in, because again, this is your corporate instance. Don't do this for your public one. People, do not do this for your public one. Don't do it. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to train the models on your corporate information. Don't do it. If you have a private one where it's siloed, do it. But since you have the private one, like I do it at work and I use Claude Code, you can definitely feed it, right, without having any concern that it's leaving the environment. But you should, because now you're training Claude, and you're gonna when we get into Claude code, okay, probably within maybe the episode after this one. When you get into Claude code, you'll see the benefit of having that, right? Because now you can actually have Claude execute things for you on your behalf.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to.
You want to get to that? We'll get there. We'll get there. Any other questions before? I think it's a good conversation. I think it's a really good conversation. I think I see it in your eyes. I see it in how you respond back, that you're thinking, right? You're thinking on the use cases of this, and anything you want to ask before we drop off and let you get back to what you need to do.
No, like I said, and there's some things I'm going to be following up on this weekend.
Right.
So I'm going to be doing that. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to work on those things, and we'll circle back when we meet again.
Quick question before we drop off: do you have access to Claude Desktop at work, or is it just Claude Code?
Right now, it's just Claude Code. I tried to download Claude Desktop. I'm going to try to get approval to get the desktop version.
Okay.
See where we go from there.
Okay. All right. So maybe we do Claude Code next week. All right.
Yeah.
Monday's a holiday, so we won't talk Monday, but we'll do it next week. And we'll get Claude Code set up in your environment. Walk you through some of it. Now, I know you're not, a programmer, and this is what I want to highlight for folks that are listening. Right. You don't have to be a programmer to use Claude Code. I know that word code is a bit scary for a lot of engineers and sysadmins in the IT space, but I use it all the time. And I'll show you some of the things that I did. Can I show you some of my corporate stuff? I'll reproduce some of the things I did in my corporate world on my personal, just to show you what the benefit of having Claude Code in your environment on your desktop is, especially when it comes to documentation and SOP creation. It's gonna be a benefit for you. It's not just about writing code. Just because there's code in there, believe me, it's a lot more than that. Do you use Visual Studio Code now or no?
A little bit, because I manage an application that does a lot of Visual Studio.
Okay, all right. So we'll go through that setup and just how to do that. So all right, so I have some homework to do myself. You continue working with projects. Continue looking at the instruction set, seeing how you can tailor that for your specific needs. Right. And we'll talk to you next time, man.
Awesome.
Good talking to you, man. Thanks a lot.
Talk to you.
All right, bye. And there we go. Another great episode with Rudy. A lot of insights into what he's done so far to date. Again, all focused on the UI. We haven't even done Claude Desktop or Claude Code. At the end of this conversation, we talked about doing Claude Code and making sure he had Claude Code access in his organization. He does. We're going to set up Visual Studio and how to set up Visual Studio with Claude Code and get him all set up next week. So if you think about what you want to do and you have additional questions or insights, always reach out to me. Hit me up on any of the social media channels. They just search for the ITXP. Hit me up on the itxp.com. I have a contact page there if you want to reach out to me. But don't get scared about the word code. Really, don't get scared about it. It's just what the developers use, right? So that's why they call it code, to align with their needs. But it's much more than that. It's really Claude at your fingertips. It's Claude that can actually execute things for you. We'll talk about MCP servers next week and what they are. We may even configure an MCP server depending on what his organization has access to. I wish I could show you some of the stuff in my organization, but I can't. Just for various reasons. And you saw me mask out Rudy's organization, right? I'm not gonna show his organization once we get into Claude Code, because I think it's gonna be a little bit too much. Because it gets hairy, right? When I'm masking things out, I released episode 2 just today. Today's Friday, the 22nd. It literally took me a week to do that because I watched every single frame of that video to make sure nothing would get through. So I had to mask everything out because I don't want anybody to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. Right. So, we'll try to figure out how we can show something meaningful within his organization. If not, then I'll show you within my personal stuff and things that I've done to leverage Claude Code. Again, just to get the juices flowing, just to get things going, just to ensure that you start leveraging this. There's a lot of value that's going to come from this for us seasoned veterans, or even those starting out. to leverage this technology, to leverage this tool. This is another tool in your tool belt. So thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll catch you next time.